Okay, well, I have a special treat today. So I'm working on a animation test for a short film that I'm developing, and I wanted to actually share this test because a lot of times when you see animation, you see the end result and you don't see the process and the mistakes and the issues that happened leading up to the final result. And so I wanted to go over a sample and analyze it and take a look at some things that I want to change, some things I'll probably leave the same, and hopefully you'll find that helpful for your own animation projects. So, I should also mention that going forward, I also want to put out some videos on the process of how I got even to this point, some of the programs and other tools and processes that I used. But in this video, I just want to cover the overall idea and the overall artistic choices and a few of the technical issues that we need to address. So let me set up annotations here. And let me play this a couple times through, and then we will analyze it.
Roast beef? Huh. You're more adventurous than I am. Roast beef? Huh. You're more adventurous than I am.
So, a couple of things here. Probably the biggest issue is this starting point for the head. And the idea was essentially to give this some exaggeration because when you're working on a cartoon, often you're going to add some level of exaggeration. Now, this is a proportionally more realistic character, but it is a cartoon character, and so having some exaggeration with the head nod is not necessarily a bad idea in theory, but it's probably taken a little bit too far. And kind of along the same line, the eyes are just looking up. And this is partly because I didn't finish the eyes for this test. Ideally, we would want them kind of fixed to some particular locations, and there are some ways we could set that up with a parent-child system inside of Blender. But in this case, the result is our character is looking off into space and looks really weird. Now, the rest of this, if we go through, we can see that most of this looks okay with the eyes, even though he's technically not fixed on a particular point. Most of this looks decent. We do have this weird transition here with the eyes going from looking to the right of the screen to looking straight. And there's a couple things we could do. We could make it move faster, and that might be one option. Or we could have the character blink. Oh, you'll notice that the character blinks right here, and that makes the transition here a little bit smoother and more natural. So adding a blink might actually fix that. And then we also have this head nod that is just a little bit too exaggerated, and he's staring off into space. So those are some of the issues with the head. We'll just kind of move down, and let's see here. The neck. You'll notice, and this is something that's, of kind of a more technical issue that honestly we could probably leave it. The turtleneck collar, I don't even know what to call this, moves with the character's head, which one of the reasons for that is so that it doesn't collide with the chin as he's moving around. But it's also a little bit tall, and this is kind of a area in animation where it's not uncommon for cartoon characters to have clothes that bend in weird ways when you think about it physically. Honestly, probably a lot of people don't notice this, so I'm most likely going to leave it, especially because the character, I actually made this, I kind of cut it off just to see what it would look like, and it looked really strange for a number of reasons. One, the character is kind of a, not an astronaut, but is in a sci-fi environment where having this kind of look would actually kind of make more sense. And, it's one of those things that it is technically weird, but honestly, we can probably get away with it because it is animation. So I'm a little bit on the fence with that, but we can probably put up with it. Let's see some other things. This is a placeholder. You'll notice that it's just a basic object. I made it in plasticity. I hope to make the complete object also in plasticity. If you want to see some plasticity videos, be sure to check out some of those videos on my channel. But of course, this is just a placeholder because this is just a test here. And yeah, it's one of those things. This will need to be replaced eventually. Okay. A couple other things. This hand is all weird and wacky. I think he's in a default position and transitions here to a different kind of default. All the fingers are flat. Ideally, we'd have this hand basically snapped to the leg and not really move around a lot, because that's it looks weird to have it kind of just float there. However, the end goal here is to have a table, and so whether or not we need to spend a whole lot of time working on the animation for this, probably not, because it's just one of those things. It's not terribly important if we have a table, as this is probably too high, probably down here. We will probably have something like this, and just, this wouldn't even be seen. In fact, we might even frame this a little bit closer in, and so it's really probably not a big deal. And the shifting is, even though it's not technically snapped to the leg, it probably wouldn't matter if we had something right here. So that's not necessarily a big deal, but certainly if we were to view this from another angle, then that could be an issue. Similarly, we also have the belt line, and an issue that's going on here is that the coat is clipping through the pants, and we also have some weird things going on with the pocket flaps. This one looks okay here. This one looks kind of strange. We could use some shape keys to perhaps do some corrective shape keys on that, maybe fix it. But again, because we're going to do that table, it's one of those things I went back and forth. It's like I'd like to know how to fix it, but not necessarily critical unless we change the camera angle significantly. This, we can actually, the belt line here, and the way that this is clipping through, we could probably fix with, just a basic preserving the volume inside of Blender, and I might do a video of that. There's also some other cool techniques that I've learned about recently for like copying vertex groups from the body mesh to the clothing so that everything lines up a little bit better. And of course we have mesh deform. There's a number of options we could use to fix this. Again, for this particular shot, not a big deal, but it's something that I've been thinking about just in case I have some other camera angles, or for future animation projects, I want to know how to fix this. So that's just some thoughts on that. Other than that, there's spots here and there where, again, this is a cartoon character, so having some exaggeration is fine, and having some subtle movements is also fine. The way this, and I hope to have a video on this, but the way this was actually made was starting with motion capture, but then
Roast beef? Huh.
The final result was made by taking motion capture, but then clearing out a lot of the keyframes and really only focusing on those main keyframes, and I used a program called Cascadeur to do that. And one of the nice things, Cascadeur has this really neat feature. There's a really special way it processes the animation curves, the arcs. And so I hope to have a video on that as well, so be sure to stay tuned for that. The shoulders move this way a little bit much when the character sways to the left. I'm kind of mixed. It's one of those things where it is a little bit much. The character is shifting a lot. But the character could also be nervous in this case, given some of the story. So it's not necessarily a big deal. It's just something I noticed also with, this hand kind of distracts just a little bit. But those are kind of minor issues compared to some of the other things like the eyes and head, which are a little bit more major. Finally, just watching this, something I noticed even before making this video is that we could also stand to maybe have the character squint and do some things with his eyebrows when he's saying these lines.
Roast beef?
The implication is the character does not like roast beef, and as part of the story, they're actually having liquid meals, and so he's basically pointing out that the other character has chosen a liquid meal flavored like roast beef, and so he's questioning that decision.
Roast beef? Huh. You're more adventurous than I am.
So even though
roast beef?
There is some eyebrow movement and some blinking and some, looking around, a little bit of a slight smirk here, we could potentially just liven the performance a little bit by squinting and maybe some blinks and some eyebrow movement. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. So be sure to stay tuned for some of the how-to videos, getting into the more technical details. But I wanted to cover the overall thought process behind making fixes, and especially some common things like clothing going through other parts of the clothing or different clipping. Wanted to kind of highlight that, and because it's something that it's easy to see finished products out there on the internet, and kind of gloss over the fact that there can be a lot of issues and a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of both artistic and technical choices that have to be made. And so I think it helps to have a video explaining some of that thought process and how to, it's there is some growing pains when learning some of these techniques and practicing how to work through some of these issues. So wanted to share that. Hope you found this video helpful and interesting. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, liking this video, sharing this video with friends, and hitting the notification bell to stay up to date.